Okay. Here we are again. Pierre, since you're first here, does this sound more like normal? We had to stop the last live stream because my mic was not set on the right thing because I changed my settings for a podcast the other day and I did not change them back. So someone who is here, like Pierre, let me know if the mic is working. I can't do that again. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, so hello, everyone. We're back. Sorry for the cluster that just happened on the other channel. How am I going to get back to that? Okay, if somebody has, whoever posted, I saw somebody posted a super chat on the previous channel. Just so anybody's listening, we had a microphone problem. I had a microphone problem on the live stream, and so I had to restart this. So it is April 21st, 2023. I am Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective. We're going to try to catch up on things. Ramon, you had posted a second question that I think I was just getting to when I had the sound messed up. So Ramon, and I think there was somebody else who, oh, cool. Thank you, Pierre. Oh, it was cruciferous vegetables and the thyroid. Yes, thank you. And then if there was somebody else who did a super chat, if you guys still have it up, if you can copy and paste somebody that super chat. Somebody said they read my lips as I was frustrated with my mic being off. Yes, I am human. Yes, professionalism can fall out the window sometimes. Anyway, okay, so we got the cruciferous vegetables. Okay, so what I was going over before. First of all, there is no documented evidence of sulfur deficiency anywhere ever. There is no such thing that has been diagnosed as a sulfur deficiency. Yet, everyone in the alternative and conventional worlds are worried about sulfur in terms of your detox. You have to put in more sulfur so that you can detox. And no one's ever shown that to be a limiting factor in detox, ever, that I know of. No one has shown it. So, that leaves us with, what does sulfur actually do in terms of detox? Now, I've been over this before, and I'm not. This is just something, I say a lot of stuff. I talk a lot on the internet, so there's. I don't expect everybody to have known everything I've seen, but sulfur in this world. First of all, oh yes, don't forget, everybody, if you're here, don't forget to go and X out of the chat and go like the live stream. That helps other people find us. If you're here later, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you're here later, please leave a comment. It can be as short as you want. Emojis work, whatever, anything you like. Yeah, so that really helps everybody to see it. So don't forget to like this if you're live, and don't forget to like it if you see it later. So back to cruciferous vegetables. It is known in the research, as Ramon posted, that they are suppressive to the thyroid. This is well known, yet you got people shoving kale down their pie holes like there's no tomorrow. And we went over thallium toxicity in kale. Different vegetables pull up different toxins from the soil. The tea plant, TEA, Camellia sinensis, pulls up tons of fluoride. Rice pulls up tons of arsenic. And there was another super chat. I need to find it. Allie, if somebody else finds it, or if the person can just repost, I'll just believe you that it was a super chat. Somebody, it was a yellow one. I think it came up as yellow on my thing. So I will see if I can go back and check. But I didn't take down that other video. So the other video is still there. If somebody can go find that super chat, I think there was a second one. Anyway. So of course, mainstream is saying that mainstream conventional and mainstream alternative says that you need sulfur to detox. And everybody's taking things like DIM, diindolyl methane, and DMSO, and MSM, and They're just shoving salt. They're trying to eat cruciferous vegetables and all sorts of things that are very high in sulfur. We're coming at this from a different angle. Now, sulfur in the research, sulfites, has been shown in the research to slow down a very important enzyme. You guys will have remembered me talking about this. Aldehyde dehydrogenase. One of the most important bottleneck enzymes in terms of detox in the body. It's the one that gets slowed down that then causes us to build up aldehydes, and then we don't detox. Here we go. We're just going to use a simple review paper. People go, but sulfur's slowing down detox. That's not what everybody else says. Let's just go here. Here's the paper. Is aldehyde dehydrogenase inhibited by sulfur compounds in vitro and in vivo studies? So they're doing both cell studies and whole. They're looking, this is a review. They're looking at both whole body and cell studies. We'll just take the last sentence. This is the first study reporting the regulation of ALDH activity by sulfane sulfur species, and the results suggest that it leads to inhibition of the enzyme. So, sulfur inhibits ALDH. Disulfiram is a drug that is specifically made to inhibit ALDH. Note the name, disulfiram, sulfur. They slow down ALDH with a disulfide drug, 2 sulfurs, even better. When you start inhibiting ALDH, you start depleting B1 because your body uses B1 to bind to aldehydes to protect you from them so that you can excrete them with less toxicity. B1 is an antidote to certain aldehyde toxicities. Also tends to deplete folate because you need folate to run the ALDH enzyme. And the more you have to run the ALDH enzyme, or the more you suppress it with toxic things like sulfur, the more aldehydes you have, the more it depletes your folate. Ramon, I'll see if I can pull those together. I'll see if I can pull the videos together. Obviously the live stream is going to be, I have somebody who can put it together. Anyway, so sulfur. You ever notice some people's farts will stink of sulfur, like rotten eggs? This is often an indicator that you're not processing sulfur right. People will drink wine that has sulfites added. Now, just so you know, all wine has sulfites in it, naturally occurring sulfites. But here in America, for your health and protection, they like to add more sulfites to it, which is why let's say you drink wine and wine makes you feel worse than other types of alcohol. Let's say you feel hot. Let's say you get argumentative. Let's say you get bright red ears. Let's say your face turns red. Let's say you sleep terribly. Let's say it makes you more emotional. All sorts of symptoms from the added sulfites in wine. Let's say you're really, really sensitive to caffeine. Caffeine is processed through an enzyme called xanthine oxidase, which also helps you detox vitamin A. It's one of the enzymes that can help you detox and push vitamin A down the pathway. Well, that's related to sulfur metabolism too. So we got sulfur gas, we got sulfite sensitivity. If you're really sensitive to alcohol, that's usually a sign your ALDH enzyme is slowed down, and that it'll tie into the sulfur in a second. What else was there? Oh, if you tend to have fungal issues, yeast issues, that also, so all of these things connect to molybdenum deficiency. Those questions that I was asking, sensitivity to alcohol, sensitivity to sulfites in wine is a big giveaway. History of yeast or fungal issues, sensitivity to caffeine, and sulfur farts. Those things are often indicators of a lack of molybdenum. Now, you need molybdenum to process sulfur. So if you don't have enough molybdenum, you often get issues, health issues, because you need molybdenum to run ALDH. That's the first question. That's the alcohol question. You need molybdenum to run sulfite oxidase, very sulfur-related enzyme, which is the question about wine. You need molybdenum to run xanthine oxidase, which is related to vitamin A, but it's also the main thing that processes caffeine. It seems that when you have a lack of molybdenum, people tend to get fungal or yeast issues. And then sulfur gas, which would be like you're processing sulfur so poorly in your intestines that the bacteria are feeding on it, making sulfur gas like hydrogen sulfide in your bowels, which is not good for you. Even though medicine is going to start trying to say that hydrogen sulfide is good for you. It can kill you. The gas could actually kill you. But modern medicine is going to start saying, oh, but you need some. It's going to be good for you. And they're going to say, you need some bile in your blood. You need some hydrogen sulfide in your system. They're going to try to turn it into, just mark my words, they're going to start trying to make you think more and more things that are bad for you are good for you. They've been doing it forever. That's what we talk about here with vitamin A. So I do not believe, well, and let's just do another little analogy. When people talk about, in the Bible, when people talk about the stench of hell and the things around the devil and the smells that go with that, and fire and brimstone. Brimstone is sulfur. Hell is associated with the stench of sulfur. Take that for what you will. I believe that excess sulfur slows down detox, would also tend to lead to cholestasis, because if you slow down detox, you back things up. As you back things up, things are going to break the dam. They're going to crack the dam and overflow. Let me just see here. I was just going to see if there's anything connecting sulfur and cholestasis. Hold on. Let me see. I'm looking up as disulfiram and liver injury. Oh, here we go. So remember, disulfiram is specifically used to slow down ALDH. It is a disulfide molecule. There is an entire list of things, they call them, what is it called? Disulfiram-like reactions in medicine. Disulfiram-like reactions. Go, feel free to look that up. I just looked up a series, I just did a search on disulfiram liver injury. So what I believe is that things that slow down ALDH also slow down and mess with proper bile production. It seems that if you slow down ALDH, you tend to slow down bile production, which then backs things up. It doesn't mean you necessarily slow it down. You still make it, but it's not leaving like it should, and it's breaking things in the process. So there's a whole list of, if you look up disulfiram-like reactions, there's all sorts of medications and other things that can cause disulfiram-like reactions because a lot of medications slow down ALDH. Sulfur is not your friend. You can't avoid it, but it's just like vitamin A. You can't eat real foods and completely avoid vitamin A. Anyone who thinks that is misinformed. Even beef has vitamin A in it. No matter what you read on the internet, you can go and find studies on wild reindeer where they show that wild reindeer have vitamin A in their muscle. So please don't think that grass-fed beef that's eating carotenoid grass all day or feedlot beef that are being fed vitamin A supplements in their food don't think that there's no vitamin A in that muscle. That's just, it's one of the lowest vitamin A foods you can eat. Why are people able to do a muscle meat carnivore diet and feel better? Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the lowest vitamin A and lowest copper diets you can do. And it's relatively low in bad sulfurs. What I want to get at is the biggest things to avoid in the sulfur area are some of the things that the health world thinks are the best for you. The biggest things to avoid, the allium family, garlic and onions and leeks and the like, the stinkier they are, the worse they are for you. And then cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, other things in that family. And then the other really high sulfur thing that you just don't want to eat too much of, egg whites. Egg yolks are the whole choline and vitamin A problem. I figured out why people, I do believe I've uncovered why people think that they need more choline, and it's a deficiency somewhere else that they're band-aiding with something that stores more vitamin A in their liver. And so they're taking a high vitamin A food, they're making it with the choline so that they can shove more of it in their liver, and they're saying they feel better because they got the vitamin A out of their blood and they put it right back into their liver and their fat tissues. What they're doing is they're band-aiding a different deficiency. I will go into that in the Love Your Liver program very soon. Some of you may have an inkling of what I'm talking about. Those who are in the inner circle, I went over, I showed very clearly what this deficiency was related to last week in the inner circle. So if you want the cutting edge stuff that I talk about, if you want it before I'm ever going to talk about it on YouTube. So just so you know, the order of things that I tend to uncover is the inner circle first, which goes to the advanced detox a month later. The advanced detox is a way to watch my inner circle videos less expensively, but you don't get to ask questions. And then here is where it tends to come out last, because I just don't bring things out here willy-nilly. So let's get into the other question. But sulfur, cruciferous vegetables are not your friend. I3C, DIM, DMSO. I want you to think about this. I'm going to tell you 3 things that cause body odor. We've been over this before. Magnesium deficiency will cause body odor. Zinc deficiency will cause body odor. And excess sulfur foods will cause body odor. Have you ever noticed how certain body odors smell like onions? What do you think your body's trying to push out of you? Why is it that people want to eat garlic and onions when they know that they're when you eat garlic and onions, right, it comes right out your breath, like your body's just trying to get rid of it. You're even breathing it out. It's coming out through your pores. Your body doesn't want sulfur in excess. You can't avoid it in foods, but your body does not want that sulfur. It slows everything down. Sulfur is yellow. One of the things we associate with generally things that are toxic to you is the yellow color. All the cruciferous vegetables that are out there were created by hybridizing plants into, they took the mustard plant and they hybridized it over and over and over again to create these freaky cruciferous vegetables that we have today. They are not natural vegetables. Weird that they might have created vegetables that aren't good for us. You ever notice how your house stinks of sulfur once you start cooking it because you broke open those cells? And that smell is not good. So like if you smell garlic or onions on somebody's breath, it doesn't smell good to you, right? If you smell oniony BO, that doesn't smell good to you. So I want you to think about, why do you think it tastes good? Isn't that freaking weird? Like, why would we think that if it's coming out of another person, that it doesn't smell good, but eating it is good? Kind of a disconnect, isn't it? I found as people, one of the things we've noticed on the program, and you guys in the chat can feel free to agree, as we get cleaner, as we avoid these toxins, we lose our taste for a lot of the things that are toxic that we may have loved before. Like, how many people love garlic and onions these days? They love it. They want it on everything. More garlic, more onions, just shove it everywhere. But then as they do this, like, I could care less if I ever ate onions or garlic again. I've got the garlic presses, and I used to put onions on everything. I just thought I thought back in the day, before I knew about all this stuff, I thought if I can put onions in something, I'm putting more vegetables in it. It's good for me. I used to put frozen spinach in everything. Oh, it's just a way to sneak more vegetables in to everything. How many of you out there did that? Poisoning yourself with the frozen spinach, and you're slowing down your detox with the onions. Now, I will say, of all the cruciferous vegetables, I do think cauliflower is probably the least bad, which was one of the ones that Grant used on his adventures in detox, in vitamin A detox. Now, do you need to eat cauliflower? No, but if people want to eat a vegetable, cauliflower is one of the ones that I don't think is too bad. And what color is it? It's white, so it doesn't have as many of the plant defense compounds as the other ones. But do I crave cauliflower? No, it's just something I'll have when it's out there. So anyway, let's get back to the others. So I hope that answered your question, Ramon. Oh, and so the funny thing is sulfa drugs. Oh, let's go into sulfa drugs. And there's all sorts of stuff on the internet about sulfa drugs, and they'll say it's not a sulfur allergy. They'll say, like, it has nothing to do with sulfur. Well, sulfa drugs refers primarily to sulfonamide antimicrobials such as sulfa methoxazole, sulfisoxazole, sulfafurazole, and sulfadiazine, containing sulfur, oxygen, nitrogen, and other groups. And then what they add right here, allergic reactions occur due to the actions of sulfonamide antimicrobials, not the actual sulfur. So they're going to tell you that it's definitely not the sulfur. We wouldn't want you to suspect the sulfur. Don't suspect the sulfur, even though every single drug is named after it. If you don't remember, I went over like vitamin A and allergies a couple of live streams ago, and the fairly distinct research showing that vitamin A is related to allergies. And then I just went over today about how disulfiram and other sulfur-containing drugs and other drugs cause what they call disulfiram-like reactions because they slow down ALDH. So what could we assume that the sulfa drugs also do? Because they contain sulfur. Slows down ALDH. What does slowing down ALDH cause the body to accumulate? Why does disulfiram work in alcoholics who take it to help them stop drinking? Not in a good way. I mean, you're slowing down their detox. You're sending them to the grave early. But maybe it's better than them being alcoholics. I don't know. It slows down their ALDH. So if they do drink alcohol after they've taken this disulfiram for the day, their ALDH slows down. They build up acetaldehyde. They're building up a more toxic acetaldehyde is what makes you feel bad from drinking. They slow down acetaldehyde processing, so you build it up in the system. You feel terrible. You have terrible hangovers. You just feel awful. And that's supposed to be the deterrent to keep people from not drinking. Because apparently these people only have enough self-control to take a pill to stop them from drinking because of punishment, physiological, biochemical punishment later. Okay? They use sulfur to slow down detox. Sulfa. So imagine if you build up aldehydes, what if there's just a bunch of drugs out there that slow down ALDH and you build up aldehydes? And so your reaction to sulfa drugs is absolutely related to the sulfur. And it's absolutely related to you building up aldehyde toxicity. What is one of the aldehydes out there that we concern ourselves with the most? Retinaldehyde, also known as retinal, to hide it from you in the research. But you can build up formaldehyde, you can build up retinaldehyde, you can build up acetaldehyde, you can build up one of the worst ones, malondialdehyde, which comes from oxidized PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. So a lot of people out there are very anti-seed oils. I'm anti-seed oils too. But I generally just have people try to reduce their fats overall. Did I say low fat? No, I didn't say low fat. I said reduce their fats overall. But malondialdehyde is a super toxic aldehyde. So if you slow down your ALDH, you're going to build that up. Let's say for those like our testimonial earlier about hair loss getting better, do you know that in the serum, the blood of people who have alopecia, hair loss, they find higher levels of serum malondialdehyde? I believe I had a study where they also found higher levels of malondialdehyde in the scalp of people who were losing their hair. Weird. A lot of people say they feel so much better because they avoid seed oils and PUFAs. What is the mechanism? The mechanism is you're making less malondialdehyde because aldehydes are a huge part of health problems. But yet we've got everybody throwing in spices on everything. Just so you know, like spices, cumin contains cuminaldehyde. You can look it up. Cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde. Vanilla contains vanillin, which is really vanilla aldehyde. If you're into essential oils, that's all full of aldehydes. If you're watching everybody get sick out there and trying to do everything smelly, scented, they're all poisoning themselves with aldehydes, and then they're doing things that slow down their ALDH, like eating high sulfur foods. And everybody wonders why they're not getting better or why they have improvements at the start and they get all super happy. And then it all goes to crap a couple months later, maybe a year later. Maybe you get lucky and you get a year of good stuff out of it. And then it goes to crap, and then nothing else that you do in that world where they don't understand detox, nothing else makes them better. So that's that. So I hope that, Ramon, that was a big answer to that question, but I want people to understand sulfur and how we have all been misled on sulfur. Sulfur is not your friend. Molybdenum is an extremely critical mineral to processing sulfur in your body. Many of you here might say, what's molybdenum? I've never even heard of it. And I'm not saying that's bad. You haven't heard of it because it helps you process alcohol. It helps you process sulfites. It helps you process caffeine. It helps you get rid of candida and fungus and yeast. It helps to avoid smelly body odor like sulfur onion body odor, and it helps to avoid sulfur gas. If they didn't want you to be well and they wanted to cause, problems between people and problems all over the place, would they tell you about molybdenum? Do you know I found old research on soil science where they said that everything that they calibrated in the soil, this is old stuff, they don't do it anymore. Everything they used to calibrate in the soil, they calibrated it relative to the molybdenum content of the soil because that's how important molybdenum was to the soil. And I can tell you there's like no molybdenum in the foods anymore. I used to be able to tell people before I knew about beans and soluble fiber, and I was just doing hair tests, I used to be able to tell people if they ate a cup of beans, this doesn't work anymore. Tell people to eat a cup of beans a day. If you ate at least a cup of beans a day, cooked beans, not dry, cup of beans a day, it would cover your molybdenum needs because that's what everything on the internet says. That used to work. It doesn't work anymore. I used to be able to tell people to eat a certain number of selenium or Brazil nuts to get selenium. That number doesn't work anymore. The amount of these minerals in your foods is drastically dropping. And I can just tell you from hair testing. It's really easy to watch. And I can tell you that aluminum levels in people's hair has been going up steadily over the last couple of years. It very specifically changed at one point. Is it stuff falling from the sky? I don't know. Or are they just putting more and more things, more and more of our foods, our packaged foods, in things that have aluminum liners? And just so you know, folks, if you're sitting there thinking that, well, they put a liner in, they put like a little lining in aluminum cans, and they put a liner in the Tetra packs that have the aluminum. Just cut open a Tetra pack. I mean, you should know that an aluminum can has aluminum in it, right? But if you cut open a Tetra pack, like those are the packages that rice milk comes in, soy milk, chicken broth, some coconut waters. If you cut open those cardboardy boxes, liquid boxes, you'll see that the inside is silverish, grayish. That is aluminum, causing that to be that color. And people will say, but they put a coating on it so that you don't get aluminum in the food. BS, because I can see it on hair tests. And I can tell people to stop eating out of them, and their aluminum levels will go down. If you're getting into the summertime and you're thinking of drinking a bunch of things out of aluminum cans, I'm going to tell you, you're putting aluminum in your brain. And I can see distinctly that aluminum coming into your body over time on a hair test. And I can watch it as you take those things out, the aluminum level go down. It's clear as day. So, let's see. Let me find the other. Hold on. Let's see. Let me find the other super chats. So Alexander Sylvester, hello, Dr. Smith. How would you deal with sinus congestion in children when they have a, quote, cold? Well, I do have inside the Love Your Liver network. There's a section, for those of you who are members and you don't know about it yet, there's a section in there under courses called What to Do If You Get Sick. So there is a whole section of things, very easy, very basic, very underappreciated things that people can do for when they're sick. Now, you can do this, the old, breathing in. I do like NeilMed, the sinus rinses. I do actually think those can be very, very helpful. NeilMed is one brand. They make the plastic squeeze bottle where you put it in your nostril and you can stay upright and it goes up and through. My mom particularly loves that approach. Neti pots are just like old technology where you're depending upon gravity and having to crank your head and get your neck in all those weird positions. It's just not fun, and there's not much pressure rinsing through your nose. Whereas like the NeilMed or those electronic ones where it's like pumping water into your sinuses and coming out the other nostril, that is something that can really help. There's always the inhaling, steam, getting in the bathroom with the shower running. There's, if you can do it over, you heat some water on the stove and you put a towel over your head and you breathe in the steam to help kind of loosen things up in there. There's always the good old, mentholatum, or what's the other one? VapoRub. One of the active ingredients of VapoRub is turpentine. I've talked about turpentine here before, but they do clear things up. I'm not necessarily going to say that those are great. They are very stinky, and so they're probably not helping long term. But we're only using them short term for something that's uncomfortable. When there is a cold or a flu, we've talked about this here before, it is a massive, prolonged bile dump. There was a giant bile dump into the system by the liver, and it leaked into the blood, and that is causing the symptoms. So in children, it's kind of, children are not always, so this is the idea. Here's the important thing. The massive, prolonged bile dump, by the time the symptoms are showing up, the bile's already in the blood. There's not much that we can do about the bile that's already in the blood other than symptom soothers, or we can do things to shut down the bile dumping. That's something we can do. Shutting down the bile dumping is what most people do to feel better. Now, let's just go over an example of this we were talking about sulfur and slowing down bile production. Gosh, what do some people do when they're sick? What do they eat whole cloves of? Oh, is it garlic? They're chomping down whole cloves of garlic full of disulfides. And sometimes they say it gets them better really quick. Why would that work? Because they shut down the bile dumping, because sulfur slows down ALDH. Garlic is some of the highest sulfur foods. And when you slow down ALDH, you slow down bile production and dumping. Polyphenols, people like to do those when they're sick, like elderberry. Elderberry is massively high in polyphenols. Blueberries, that kind of stuff. I've been over before on this channel, the research showing that polyphenols slow down ALDH. Shocking. People say, oh, I take my elderberry and I get better so much quicker. Slow down ALDH, slow down bile production and dumping, symptom improvement. Now, also high-dose vitamin C. I have said before that I do believe high-dose vitamin C slows down bile production and dumping. And high-dose vitamin C in some animal studies has been shown to increase fatty liver. Remember how I said slow down bile production and dumping, but it may not be slowing down. It's just being stored in the liver. Okay? Fatty liver is inhibited bile production and dumping, and then the body's storing some of it in there. So it all starts to make sense. Now, if we start doing things that are specifically, we can do things like those things that we talked about, the remedies for being sick, the garlic, the polyphenols, the elderberry, mega dosing vitamin C up to bowel tolerance. You can do those things and shut it down. The body had a reason for wanting to get rid of that toxic bile all at once, and it got triggered somehow, whether it was the cold weather coming in, whether it was, let's say I have a good friend who went to the Country Thunder concert here in Arizona, which was like 5 straight days. And this person was drinking every day for 5 straight days. My friends don't have to do anything that I do for them to be my friend. People can do whatever they want. I can be friends with people who don't follow what I do. That should make sense. So she comes back and she's in town for a couple days and she gets sick. I told her, I said, it's probably because of the 5 days of drinking and now it's catching up to you. And she didn't believe me. She doesn't understand my work yet, but I just thought it was funny. So all of a sudden the body so you intox, lots of intoxing. Alcohol is only a poison. Don't ever believe that alcohol's good for you. That's only because of the billions of dollars that the alcohol industry can spend on scientists to figure out science pieces, to write papers that tell you that a little alcohol is good for you. There's no amount of alcohol that is healthy, like promoting health. There's no amount of alcohol that is promoting health. We'll put it that way. Should you choose to drink, that's your choice. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. But the bile dumping, once it's happening, you're either going to try to slow down the bile dumping through doing healthier things. Like, let's say one of the biggest things that people can do when you're sick that almost nobody does. Stop what you're doing. Stop doing all the things that are stressing you out and rest. Go lay your ass down. Go rest. Give your body all the resources it needs to fight, to detox, to do the job that it's supposed to do. Right? This should make sense. And like the person I know who got sick, I said the first thing you can do is stop what you're doing and rest. And she said, well, I just took a day off of work this week for that from the concert. I can't take any more time off this week. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this is the reality, right? The reality is you can't always just stop. And I had her do some gargling with salt water, which is one of the things that can really kind of slow down the sore throat thing. There's other things that we can do that are gentle to the system that can help people feel better, that aren't drastic. But yeah, that whole little course is in the Love Your Liver program. What we find is if people can just relieve their symptoms through the process without shutting down, without slowing down or shutting down their detox too much, when they come out on the other side of it, they feel better than they did before, because it's a massive bile dump, and your body's going to have to process through all that and get rid of it. It is getting rid of it. You know, it is big bile dumps. You do get rid of bile faster because it's not only coming out through your bile and your poop, it's coming out through your kidneys, which we don't want, but it is, and it comes out through your skin. So you're pushing all three of those avenues really hard, but that's also how you get symptoms. So those are the simple things. Oh, one of the other things you can do with sinus congestion is, this sounds funny, but you can get those breathe right strips or something like them. You can open up the sinuses just to help breathing. They make ones now that are like little springs. They're little springs that hold open your nostrils so you can breathe better. I've used both of them. Back when I used to have my allergies a lot worse, there was a time when in allergy season where I would put on the breathe right strip, and I would also put the little spring things in my nose. And it totally opened up my sinuses enough that I could breathe at night without snoring and without having to take chemical things into my system. Using a mechanical thing that's not toxic. But taking chemicals to change things, then we're probably suppressing detox. So those are the things that those are the simple things. Hope that helps. But I just try, if you decide to shut it down, there's times when we can shut things down. Like I went over, there's a guy out there, a doctor, an emergency room doctor, who was saying we can do really high dose vitamin C to shut down sepsis. To treat sepsis. What is sepsis? Sepsis is an ungodly large bile dump in the system. You're just leaking bile out of your liver. It's just coming out. It's just like spurting out into your bloodstream. Sepsis is toxic bile to the point of killing a person in their blood. So what do they use? What do they just tell you? That high dose vitamin C. So if they're doing high dose vitamin C and they're just putting it straight in a vein, what is the quickest way to shut down the liver bile production? Mega dosing something that shuts down bile, like vitamin C, into the bloodstream, straight into the bloodstream. Not having to worry about the bowels being overwhelmed and pooping it out. So this should all make sense. Remember, Linus Pauling, with his high-dose vitamin C, he started doing it because he had prostate cancer. 18 grams a day for several decades. What'd he die of? He still died of prostate cancer. Did he fix his problem? No, he just suppressed it. You are not going to have, because we live in a much more toxic world, a much more nutrient deficient world, a much more toxic world. You're not going to get the luxury of suppressing your detox systems for 20 or 30 years. You don't get that. You do not live in your parents' world. You do not live in your grandparents' world. You definitely don't live in your great-grandparents' world. And the food is deficient and toxic, and everything else here is much more toxic. You have inherited previous generations' toxicity to a certain extent. You have inherited the DNA damage of those previous generations as well. The things that are going to fix you now. The silly thing is when people say, but my great-grandparents did this, and my grandparents did this, and they didn't do this, and why am I sick? Well, they didn't do it, did they? And now you're sick. You don't get the things to fix people today are not the same things that fixed them back then. Back then, it was easy to fix things. Now you're more toxic. Your detox systems are more broken. The food is more deficient. And you've probably had a lot more meds and a lot more shots in your life than they ever got. And your liver is more damaged. So we have to do more things. That's all it is. So please don't bring up the Okinawans and their sweet potatoes, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not the same. Okay? Okay, Ryan asks, what's your thought on vitamin K shot versus oral for a baby? I'm going to put this in terms of, sorry, thank you for the super chat, Ryan. And thank you for the super chat, Alexander. Vitamin K shot. I'm going to put this in terms of what I did with my children. I would never, ever, ever allow my children to be given the vitamin K shot. That's what I would do. What you choose to do is up to you, but I would never. No, there were no shots in the hospital we're going into my daughter. My daughter, we had some delivery. We were doing a home birth with my daughter. We had some delivery complications, and we went to the hospital, and we still got a healthy baby girl vaginal birth. They did have to give her some of the assistance, the Pitocin and that stuff, because I think there was a lot of emotional stuff going on for my ex during that process. Anyway, there was no shots. There was no eye drops. None of the stuff they wanted to give my baby in the hospital, were they going to do it? My son was a home birth all the way, and he never got any of that either. I don't want them injecting anything. Go look at the other ingredients of that vitamin K shot. Like, why would they need to put all those things in there? What are they trying to do? Let's just go do it. Let's go look. So, we're looking here at the vitamin K1 injection. Vitamin K1 prescribing information from drugs.com. Drugs.com, man. Let's see. Where was the active ingredient? Phytonadione, which is K1. Inactive ingredients. Polyoxyl 35 castor oil. So it's not just normal castor oil, it's polyoxyl 35. Then we have dextrose monohydrate, which is probably cornstarch, probably genetically modified. Water, benzyl alcohol, hydroxychloric acid. Let's just say, so they're giving this vitamin. I saw this part in the search. Let's just say they're giving this vitamin K1 to injection and to newborns. They're giving this injection to newborns. You want to hear about this little line in here under warnings on the vitamin K1 injection. So you have a beautiful baby who's just been born. Miracle. Under warnings here. Benzyl alcohol as a preservative in bacteriostatic sodium chloride injection has been associated with toxicity in newborns. Benzyl alcohol as a preservative in bacteriostatic sodium chloride injection has been associated with toxicity in newborns. So they just said in one injection, it's been associated with toxicity. And then at the end of it, they say, there is no evidence to suggest that the small amount of benzyl alcohol contained in vitamin K1 injection, when used as recommended, is associated with toxicity. I don't know if you guys remember, but we talk about this. See, people will say the dose makes the poison. Well, I don't believe that to be true. I believe that many things are just poisons, and it is the dose of the poison that creates the symptoms. The symptoms are made by the dose of the poison. So let's say the dose is small enough that you don't get symptoms. Does that mean it's not a poison? Apply the same logic to mercury. What dose of mercury is not toxic? Tell me, can you? You could say there's a certain dose of mercury where we don't notice symptoms in animals. But you trying to do symptoms in humans? I mean, really? How many people are like living in denial of their symptoms? And how many people are way overblowing their symptoms? So to do those studies in humans, it becomes kind of hard. Like, what are your symptoms? And it'd be like, well, what day is it for a lot of people? So the animal studies would be the one, but they know it's toxic in newborns. They know it's toxic in newborns. And yet they're going to say, oh, but in this injection that you need, God did not design us to magically have a big vitamin K influx right after we were born. We were obviously just born broken. We should have been born with a syringe of vitamin K1 next to us so that it could be administered right after birth if we were perfect, if we were designed perfectly. But no, mankind figured out what we needed. Our design flaw. Hey, here's a funny thing. I don't know if you've seen on this channel, I did a whole video about how vitamin A toxicity depletes vitamin K. Vitamin A toxicity depletes folate. Alcohol depletes folate. Do you know that folate deficiency and vitamin A toxicity and alcohol all cause the exact same birth defects? Vitamin A depletes vitamin K, and they think that they need to give newborns vitamin K. What are we trying to address here, folks? Are all these things just to treat the vitamin A toxicity that is rampant that I've shown in the research? And then you'll get the morons out there going, correlation is not causation. And I'm like, somebody has to put this together because they're not going to pay for these studies. Do you actually think that the pharmaceutical and chemical industry is going to pay for studies to prove that their stuff is this toxic? Do you actually think that somebody's going to pay for that? People pay for things to tell you to take more things. They don't pay for things to tell you to take less things, right? Because we got to drive this capitalism Merca. So what did I do for my babies? I just thought, well, okay, so maybe the vitamin K thing, maybe there's a little bit. I mean, do I know that my ex-wife was vitamin A and copper toxic? Yeah, absolutely. Did I know about this back then? No. So all often, since I believe that vitamin K2 is not toxic, some people can have symptoms where they don't feel good, and those from vitamin K, and they shouldn't take it then. That's very simple. But if you read the research on vitamin K2, or natural forms of vitamin K, what's all over the internet is they'll say there's no known toxicity from natural forms of vitamin K. There is toxicity from vitamin K3, which is human designed. It's totally synthetic, never found in nature. Vitamin K3 is absolutely toxic, but they still put it in your pet foods. Some pet foods. It killed babies in the past, but we'll just let them keep putting it in dog food. Look that up. Yeah. Vitamin D supplements and fortification used to kill babies. I went over that in a previous live stream. Weird. These things that they say everybody should be taking vitamin D, and yet there's a history of it in fortified foods killing babies, and they took it out of many European countries, fortification of foods, but it's back in our foods, fortifying them all the time. Weird. It's almost like they have to admit that things are problems. It's almost like part of their scam. They have to tell you that it's a problem, and then when we don't object to it enough, then they take that as our approval of letting it happen to us. If you don't know, if you're not that deep into the theories, then you should get that deep. So We used the Thorne vitamin K2 drops, not the D3 and K2 drops, because those are poison. We used the K2 drops from Thorne. And I believe what the dosing that I came up with was that it would be 1 drop of that applied to the nipple before nursing. I think we did 1 drop a day for a week or 2. So we had no issues with it, for better or worse, that I could tell. And that's how I did it instead of the injection. That's how my family did it, based on my guidance. So, okay, we got some other questions. I'm scrolling down just to make sure I didn't miss any. We got plenty of super chats, so we're already at 9:30. So if you do super I saw like 3 of them. So if you do super chats at this point, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to them today. We may have to push them over to next week. Mina asks, does eye damage like blurry vision, dry eyes, and light sensitivity resolve with the detox? We have seen that, yes. Yes. The simple answer is yes. Now, what do I think tends to go along with this, or what can people do to help this? The light sensitivity, that tends to resolve fairly quickly. I would say don't push, like if you're at the point where your eyes are so light sensitive that you need to always wear sunglasses when you're outside. If you are not feeling good, like if you go outside and you sunbathe, or you're just going outside in the sun and it makes you feel terrible afterwards, it was too much. If you're getting skin damage from the sun, like sun damage where you can see it, that doesn't mean go and put on a bunch of sunscreen. It means minimize your exposure to that sun. Sunscreen's poison. Sunscreen is straight up poison. You absorb it into your bloodstream. What the sunscreen is trying to do is to prevent the damage that the sun basically crispy frying the toxins in your skin, like vitamin A. So you got to think of it this way. We store vitamin A. One of the places we store it in carotenoids is in our skin. It does not protect you from the sun. I believe your body's actually putting some of it there to be oxidized, broken down by the sun. The problem is if you crispy fry it too much, you get sun damage in your skin. Now, you've heard me talk on this channel about what I believe cancer is, which cancer is an accumulation of toxins in a certain area that the body walls off. Well, skin cancer, where does the body store vitamin A? In the skin. So if you start getting skin cancer problems, I've been over the research before that the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, they specifically talked about this, but when they put retinol palmitate, vitamin A, in sunscreens, and they put it on rats and they exposed them to light they called it simulated sunlight, the rats who had the vitamin A in the sunscreen, they got tumors sooner and bigger and faster. So vitamin A accelerated the development of skin cancer tumors in rats or mice, whichever one it was. So vitamin A, so you have to realize that, can the sun cause skin problems? Yes, because it's frying the toxins that are in your skin. Could you cause yourself eye damage if you're really toxic in your eyes by getting too much sun or light in them? Yes, blue light causes damage to your eyes when you have too much vitamin A in there. Blue light does not cause damage to eyes if there's no vitamin A. I've been over that research too. So here's the thing. So in a certain way, you got to realize this. Could people out there who don't know of what we're doing here, could they be causing themselves problems both ways? So let's say somebody's full of vitamin A and they don't wear sunscreen and they're constantly getting burned, which, just so you know, when people are detoxed enough from vitamin A, they stop getting burned for the most part. They're able to go out in the sun and not get burned. So what is that? What's the difference? People with lots of vitamin A get burned, and as they have less and less vitamin A in their skin, they don't get burned. The sun is causing a bad reaction in the skin. A sunburn the redness and the peeling are exactly some of the same symptoms that people get when they ate too much liver. And then a week later, they start detoxing it all and they get bright red and they peel. What's a sunburn? A sunburn is the damaging and crispy frying of vitamin A in your skin. Like the lady who put carrot oil on her skin and laid out too long in the sun and got 3rd-degree burns. I've been over that before. A British woman. So, not wearing sunscreen and being vitamin A toxic and not covering your skin, and you go out in the sun, can you cause, and then they say, well, the more sun burns you've had in your life, the more risk of skin cancer you have. Is this making sense now? The more times you crispy fry toxic vitamin A in your skin, the more likelihood there is going to be a problem later, because are they detoxing vitamin A? Are these people avoiding vitamin A? Are they fixing the problem? No, they're not fixing the problem at all. Next, you have people who, let's say they wear sunscreen all the time. And let's say that sunscreen was preventing some of the crispy frying of the vitamin A in their skin. Like, think of people who are tan. They kind of look like a cooked chicken, don't they? Does your body get rid of the tan or does it keep it? If the tan was a good thing, wouldn't the body keep it? Or is the tan evidence of the burning? Right? I mean, because when you cook a chicken, it cooks, it browns before it burns. And what do people, when they get a sunburn, what do they say it turns into later? Oh, it'll turn into a nice tan. What we have people on the vitamin A detox say is, after a while, they say, I don't burn anymore, but I don't tan much either. So what does that mean burning and a tan are? Are you following? So when they put vitamin A in sunscreens, they notice more and bigger skin tumors. Okay, because that would contribute to the problem. But let's say people are putting on just sunscreen and they're preventing themselves from getting burned. What are they prevent? And let's say some research says that it reduces the amount of skin cancers, which that research is usually funded by sunscreen companies like L'Oreal. What's the sunscreen preventing? It's preventing the crispy frying of the vitamin A in your skin. So could that be helping? Sure. But what would that also be accumulating in the skin? The very same toxins that are in the sunscreen. So then could sunscreen contribute to skin cancer development? Do you see how it can all be true? And how nobody out there is willing to explain all of it to you like I just did? Because it's complex. And both things, multiple things, can be true at the same time. What does it all come down to? Toxicity. T. We'll say T. Toxicity. We'll put the T in there real clear. Okay? It's toxicity. Multiple different avenues of toxicity. Can you prevent one problem, like using sunscreen? Can you prevent certain cancers by maybe using sunscreen while you're still toxic? But then you're still toxic. You're making yourself more toxic. And what are people out there saying? Oh, suntan is a good sign. Go look up the vitamin D and folate hypothesis. They actually think that sun tanning and the suntan itself is a way that the body is protecting itself so it can keep its folate levels up, because folate is extremely light sensitive. Vitamin D folate hypothesis. It's all over PubMed. Okay. Let me just see. So we got some other questions here. Reconnect to Health asks, what's your opinion on Andre Moritz's liver flush? I've been over this before in past live streams. Here is what the liver flush does. Okay. First, people don't eat much. They eat a very light diet, especially a very low-fat diet for the days before it. Now, I'm not familiar with Andre Moritz's liver flush, gallbladder flush, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same principles. So once you understand the principles that I'm going to go over, you'll understand what I'm going on, because I don't care about what specific foods are okay or not or whatever. But generally, it's going to be either people are often fasting for a day or more before it. They might be juice fasting, doing something like apple juice, or just eating apples, or they're eating some other low, very low fat, generally low animal protein, high fruit, vegetable stuff diet. Okay? It's a very vegetarian, almost sometimes vegan diet with no added fats. What would that do? That would cause the body to not push out a lot of bile. So you're kind of storing up, saving up that bile in your gallbladder, assuming you have one. So you're kind of accumulating bile in your gallbladder over those couple of days, because there's not a big reason for your body to dump it. There's no fat triggering it. And you're eating a fairly bland diet for the most part, which also doesn't trigger the bile dumping due to bitterness and all that stuff. So then on the day of the flush, when you take, people are drinking, combinations of like Epsom salts and water, because if you take enough magnesium, you will dump bile. I mean, you will get a laxative effect. I'm not sure that too much magnesium. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I don't know what magnesium itself does to bile production, especially not Epsom salts, which is sulfate. Anyway, you take a lot of Epsom salts for the laxative effect. So you're going to crap your brains out. Okay. And you take a lot of oil. Most of the time it's olive oil, but it could be other oils. The oil doesn't really matter, because what is the purpose of the oil or the fats? All at once. A giant dose of fats all at once is intended to cause all of that bile you've been storing up in the gallbladder for those 3 days or whatever to dump all at once. So you use the oil to dump the bile. Okay. You use the laxative, the Epsom salts, to force yourself to crap it all out. Okay. If you don't remember, enterohepatic circulation of bile, entero means gut to liver. It's a loop. Enterohepatic circulation of bile, or enterohepatic recirculation of bile. Normally, the bile that you put into your intestines when you're eating a normal diet, going through your normal day, standard American diet, is that you reabsorb 95% of the bile that you put into your intestines. You reabsorb 95% of it, and you only get rid of 5%. So if you store up 3 days worth of bile in your gallbladder, let's say, and then you suddenly take a bunch of fat, which could cause you to have diarrhea all by itself, couldn't it? And then you take a bunch of Epsom salts, way more than you need, so you induce diarrhea and a dumping, a violent exiting of your intestinal contents. You're probably pooping out some huge percentage of that bile. Okay? That's what it is. That is what the liver gallbladder flush is. It is simply a couple of days of storing up bile in the gallbladder and then forcefully pushing it out all at once. The gallstone, the thing, I'm not going to call them gallstones because they're not gallstones. The things you see in the toilet are not gallstones. They're a combination of that bile and the Epsom salts and the fat. That's why they float. Stones don't float. Okay? Stones are made of minerals and they sink. Fats float. So don't believe those are gallstones. That doesn't change. Can people feel better from liver and gallbladder flushes? Yes. Can people also feel horrible from massively induced diarrhea? Yeah. So people can feel like hot garbage from a liver and gallbladder flush. I've seen people in the network talk about it. I tried it. I did it once. I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. I was doing the apple juice one where I was drinking apple juice for like 3 straight days. And by, I think, the end of the first day, every time I'd take a drink of apple juice, I'd be that apple juice would be coming out my rear end in less than 10 minutes. And it was organic apple juice. It was, it was decent stuff. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is not a good sign that I'm drinking apple juice and it's coming out. It's not coming out as pee. It's coming out the other end. I was like, but back then, I didn't listen to my body as much. And I was like, oh, I'll keep doing it. Sure. Push through, right? No, I'd never do it again. Now, I do know a woman who says she had really bad like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. She said she was almost bedbound, and she said she did something like 32 of those liver and gallbladder flushes. And it helped her to get out of bed and start living somewhat of a normal life again. What if was she doing the stuff that we talk about back then? No. She didn't know anything about toxicity. She was kind of a health nut, right? Like most of us are or were. And she was probably doing a bunch of things wrong, making herself toxic, which one of the signs of that was she does have an autistic child, which would be a sign that she was toxic, very toxic, when she was pregnant with the child. Okay. I know my son's issues were caused both by the toxicity of my ex-wife from 13 years of birth control mainly, and then the goat milk that I chose, the goat milk and the high vitamin A foods that we chose to feed him. And that gave him, he's a very allergic kid, and he's got anaphylactic allergies to tree nuts. These are improving over time, but yeah, that was what caused that. Allergies are toxicity, folks. I went over that a couple episodes ago. So, but could somebody unknowingly, they don't know the toxic bile theory, and they just go and they do liver and gallbladder flushes, and they feel better because they've expelled a good amount of their toxic bile that was recirculating all the time, causing them to feel terrible. Do I think that these are necessary? No, I think people in the standard health worlds, the standard conventional and standard alternative health worlds, because they know nothing of toxic bile theory, they might get some benefit out of this, but they don't know what they're doing, and they're just making themselves toxic again because they have no idea of the root cause of why they're sick, and then they don't understand what the gallbladder flush is doing to help them feel better if they do. But that's the mechanism of it. Do I recommend it? Do I push it as a normal thing for my people to do? No. I have people who do them and they say they feel better from them. Then I say, okay, so I explain the mechanism to them, like I just did here. And I say, if you feel better doing them, go ahead. It may be helpful to the process. But if I also had somebody do it who said, I did it and it was a pain in the butt, pun intended, and maybe they say I did not feel better after it, or they say I felt worse after it. I felt horrible. Then I'd say, don't do it. Same thing I tell people with coffee enemas. What is a coffee enema doing? It's causing a bile dump. And then you just shoved all this liquid up into your intestines. And what does your body do with all that liquid? You induce coffee diarrhea. You dump bile, you induce diarrhea. Coffee enemas are good for detox. Do you understand what we're doing? And this is not just directed at you, Reconnect to Health. This is a wider. Do you know what you're doing? Like, do they know what they're doing? They have no idea what they're fixing. They just say, we're increasing the rate of detox. You're dumping toxic bile by taking in coffee, which is a bitter, which is in a toxin. Your body's saying, oh my gosh, you just put in a bunch of toxins. How does the liver try to get rid of toxins? It dumps bile. That's one of the ways it tries to do it. If the toxins are either going to inhibit the bile production or they're going to cause you to dump bile. Why does drinking coffee cause you to have a bowel movement? Because the bitter taste, this is what we're theorizing at this point. The bitter taste in your mouth, it's not necessarily the caffeine. It's the bitter taste triggers a bile dump. You have more bile in your guts. I've been over how pooping correctly requires a certain amount of bile in your intestines. Constipation is not enough bile in your intestines because it's going other places like into your bloodstream. Diarrhea is too much bile in your intestines at once. And normal pooping is the right amount, or a close to the right amount of bile in your intestines. So you poop. It triggers pooping. Bile triggers pooping. Why would it do that? Your body's trying to dump poison. That's what poop is, right? So, with coffee enemas, do I push coffee enemas on the program? No. But if people come to me, I'm not here to, try to encourage people to shove things up a one-way street. If people come to me and they're like, I'm already doing them and I feel better with them. I had one person who I knew was very, very toxic. And she told me that she was on pain meds. She was on rheumatoid arthritis, all sorts of stuff. This was a very sick woman. And she told me that she didn't poop daily unless she did a coffee enema. And until she did her coffee enema, basically her pain level would build through the day until she did the coffee enema. And then she would get relief. And then it was like the timer would start again for the next day. So what can we surmise from that based on what we believe coffee enemas do? It is toxic bile circulating in her system that is causing her pain. She goes and she's constipated. So when she's not dumping enough bile into her intestines to create the trigger to poop, she's constipated. She doesn't poop. So what are the pain meds probably doing? So then she does the coffee enema, which triggers the bile dump, the toxic bile. She poops out enough toxic bile from the coffee enema that she then gets relief because it's not recirculating in her system. This is toxic bile theory. And if you want a better understanding of how all this works, go to my Livestream 71. This is toxic bile theory. This is how the liver gallbladder flush works that almost nobody understands. This is how a coffee enema works that almost nobody understands. Can we get these effects over time without having to forcefully evacuate? Yes. I've never done a coffee enema. I did the liver and gallbladder flush once and I said, I'm never doing this again. But if it helps people, I understand the mechanism and I'll tell them if you're up for it, go ahead. Just don't think that those are gallstones coming out and just realize that we are forcing a bile dump and forcing the diarrhea to get that bile dump out. And that's how it works. Soluble fiber increases bile dumping and soluble fiber binds to bile, which helps increase your normal pooping out of bile. Now, you can take too much soluble fiber and cause too much bile dumping. So don't think that you're just going to run out and eat a bunch of soluble fiber and everything's going to be hunky-dory, because if you're sick, you probably got a lot of bile going back into your blood, and causing more bile dumping will cause more bile to go back into your blood. So quick, too long didn't read about soluble fibers. If you take soluble fiber, more soluble fiber than you are now, and you feel worse or you poop less, go back. If you are constipated or if you just are anything and you start eating more soluble fiber, whether that's from beans or oats or apple pectin supplements or psyllium or whatever soluble fiber you do, if you feel worse or if it aggravates symptoms or if you poop less, go back. Maybe you need even less. If you feel better on soluble fiber and it helps you poop more, or it just doesn't reduce your pooping, then by all means. But generally, I limit people to 30 grams of soluble fiber a day. 30 grams of soluble fiber a day seems to be a really good ceiling. Going over that is usually like diminishing returns and potentially dumping too much bile so that you feel bad. Okay? So, that was a long explanation about the liver flush. But that's what it's doing. So I know I tell people I don't go into mechanisms much, but this is more of a big mechanism. This is like talking about bile movement mechanism. This is not getting into the cellular stuff. This is the only thing that makes sense about what the liver and gallbladder flush is doing. It's not all the other crap that they theorize in the books and all that stuff. It's just getting rid of toxic bile. That's it. Okay, Ryan, another super chat from Ryan. He said he really appreciate it. And he started a no vitamin A diet also. Remember, it's not a no vitamin A diet, it's a low vitamin A diet. We try to minimize and reduce as much as we can. But yes, great. Ramon says, how safe is canned food in non-aluminum cans? Thanks. Okay, so thank you again, Ramon. I think this is Ramon's third super chat of the day. Canned food. I mean, sometimes we have to look at these things in terms of the least, more things that might tend to be more problematic and less problematic. When they talk about canned foods, right, they had to start saying no BPA lining, right? So that means if cans don't say that and they have a liner, then there's going to be BPA in the liner. And then here's the other thing that they're doing, folks. So when they get exposed for BPA, bisphenol A, and then they say, well, we got to line these cans or else what's in the can is going to eat away at the metal. And then you're going to have the metals in the food and we're going to have problems that way. So that's why they line the cans. So then they start using new materials that don't have as much research on them, that may be more toxic than BPA. And then later they'll just go, oops, we didn't know. We just knew we had to stop using BPA. So we went to this other thing and there just wasn't 20 or 30 years of research on it. So we just didn't know. And we're very sorry for poisoning everyone. They don't even usually say they're sorry. Because did they mean it? I don't know. So obviously, I try personally, I'll just put it this way. Do I eat some canned foods like beans? On occasion, yes. Do I generally try to avoid, do I generally try to minimize foods that I eat that are from cans? Yes. So is it an all or nothing thing? No, I don't tend to do all or nothing. I will eat some canned beans on occasion. But do I want a huge part of, like, if I was back to eating beans often, which I used to do, I would be getting dried beans and dried grains and cooking them in an Instant Pot to get them back to normal, to get, to rehydrate them and all that stuff. I would not be using cans on a daily basis or a multiple daily basis. Now, I know some people with their, and next thing is rinse the beans. If you're going to eat canned things, the liquid, sorry, I got a tickle in my nose. The liquid in the cans is going to be what really, really soaked up whatever was in the liner and whatever was in the metal of the can that's coming off. So don't use the liquid that's in the cans. How much of the potential toxicity, did you just get rid of by doing that? A lot. Right? So I would get rid of the liquid. So like the bean liquid, I forget what they call that. It has a specific name. I would not use the liquid in the beans. I would rinse all that off. I rinse off canned beans very, very well. I don't use the liquid. Yes, there is soluble fiber in that liquid, but yes, there's also liner chemicals and maybe metals and whatever. So I would just generally I try to stay away from metal things on my food as much as I can, other than maybe stainless steel in cooking. I do try to stay away from plastics on my food as much as possible, which would probably be the liner of cans. Definitely try to stay away from aluminum cans. Definitely try to stay away from Tetra Paks. This doesn't mean you can stay away from all of it. That's just not the way. For us people who are living in cities, you just don't get to avoid all of it. That's why, like, anybody who lives in a Western city is like, you're toxic to some extent. You can't avoid it. You can't live like, somebody on an island in all natural environment in a city. You don't get that. Nobody gets that in a city. You are toxic by definition. And the only thing you can try to do is to keep up with it as well as you can. So, but to put a number on it, how safe is it? I would put it towards, I would prefer, I think, frozen foods, even if they're in like, what if you want to call it? I don't know if they're plastic bags or whatever. If they are but because they're frozen, they're not going to be soaking up a bunch of stuff off the freezer bag, if you will. So I prefer frozen or dried to canned. But we all got to eat. So, but again, rinsing the stuff out of the can would be your best bet. So I hope that helps. Kind of like that old joke about you can't the sportscaster who said you can't contain, or you can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him. Well, it's like you can't avoid toxins, you can only hope to reduce them. That's it. So, okay, I saw another one. So, Reconnect to Health asks opinion on high dose B1 to fix digestion and energy. High dose B vitamins are an antidote to some other form of toxicity in the system. We were never intended to have to take mega doses of B vitamin supplements. And for the people who are like, I can't live without my mega dose MTHF or my mega dose thiamine or whatever, it's because they're toxic. This isn't a bad, this is just realizing what it is. Because if you don't realize what it is, you can't fix the root cause. What does B1 do in terms of antidoting? B1, I've gone over this in the research, B1 binds to aldehydes. That's what it does. Here's a funny coincidence. 50% of the Asian population has an ALDH, an aldehyde dehydrogenase genetic type, where they're very slow at processing aldehydes. So 50% of the Asian population is very slow at their ALDH. They don't process aldehydes well. So they build up aldehydes faster than everybody else. What am I telling you that B1 does? It binds to aldehydes and makes them less toxic so that you can excrete them better. Where did beriberi mostly happen? What part of the world? Asia? Do you see the connections here? We can figure all this out. I mean, I want other people to be figuring it out, not just me, but I can tell you what it is here. So that is why beriberi and high dose B1 came into such a big thing. And why? So when Asians ate too much white rice, they were already bad at processing aldehydes. And then they lowered their B1 intake even more. And then they start getting aldehyde problems. You following me? You tracking me? This is how it works. There is an answer to all of this stuff. So high dose B1. If you try high dose B1, whether it's thiamine HCl, I'm not a big fan of thiamine mononitrate, but it can work. But we don't want to use that forever. High dose thiamine HCl, or I don't like allithiamine, has a disulfide bond in it. Allithiamine is from garlic. And so all thiamine has a sulfur in it. Thiamine contains a sulfur molecule by itself. Allithiamine has a disulfide bond. B1 high dose, or trying to use B1 to fix a problem. Megadoses of B vitamins are antidotes to a toxicity in the system if a person notices improvement. Right? Why would you need more than the daily, the RDA, other than to fix a toxicity in the system, or to hide a toxicity system, or to reduce the symptoms of a toxicity in the system? That's what high dose B vitamins do. So my opinion on it in terms of fixing, so this is something you'll find that we do here is I don't say things like B1, take B1 to fix your digestion and your energy. I would say if you want to try it. See if it helps. The doses of B1 in some of the literature of people who push high dose B1 stuff, they talk about up to, I think, what the high dose is 2,000 milligrams a day of thiamine HCl. And that's in, I believe, was that in Parkinson's or Alzheimer's? I don't remember. Sorry, memory joke. But it was, I forget the guy. Who's the guy who does, was it Alzheimer's or Parkinson's? The guy who pushes, the Italian guy who pushes really B1. So then if we start going, well, if really high dose B1 helps these conditions, what's the cause of these conditions? Aldehyde toxicity. What do all of your neurotransmitters break down into? They all break down into aldehydes. I went over this in a past live stream. So what could B1 help these people with neurodegeneration from their own aldehydes that are created from their neurotransmitters? They can't break them down via ALDH because they're toxic. And then they build up aldehydes in their brain and it degenerates their brain. And then they take B1 and they get some relief from it. What is the B1 doing? It's binding to the aldehydes, making them less toxic so they can then be excreted. But if people don't fix the cause of the aldehyde buildup, do they just need to keep taking high dose B1 forever to get effects? Yeah. What happens to these Band-Aid approaches as people go on in time? They tend to start noticing they're working less and less and less and less. Why? Because the root cause was never dealt with, and their own ALDH just keeps slowing down. That's why. So, it's already 10 o'clock. Let me just see. So if it helps digestion and energy, if you try high dose B1 and it helps your digestion and energy, you can be sure that you have an aldehyde problem. And that's what the B1 is helping to reduce the symptoms of. It's fixing the cause. Nobody ever says, I took high dose B1 and my problem went away completely forever. That's not what we see. They usually have to keep taking it until they figure out what their main driving cause of it was. And if people are really toxic, they may never get out of that. And so then they just say, I got to take high dose B1 or everything falls apart. And it goes back to the way it was before, or worse than it was before. Why would it go back to worse than it was before? Because the underlying toxicity was slowly festering and getting worse. And they could only take the same amount of the same Band-Aid. So that's, if it helps, if high dose B vitamins help, I tell people it's fine to use them. It's fine to use high dose B1 if it's helping. If you are taking high dose B vitamins just because some dork on the internet said to, or you're taking a bunch of B vitamins and you're like, I don't know if they help at all. I don't think they help at all. Or even worse is, well, they told me with my condition to take this high dose B complex or this B vitamin, and I took it and I feel worse. You better stop it. So if it's helping, fine, keep taking it. Try to find the minimum dose that gives you the most benefits. Minimal effective dose, MED. That is what we want. The minimal dose that gives you the most benefits. If it's not helping, if you're trying to take it for something and it's not helping, don't take it. Because then if you're taking it, all it's doing is putting a load on your liver, because your liver has to process every supplement and food and everything you take in. So you're just adding to your liver's load without benefiting it. You should notice symptom improvement. Number 3, if you take something like, I remember these niacin guys on Twitter, right? They push the high dose flushing niacin because they think that that's some magical detox. Let me give you a hint. It's a histamine reaction. That flush from niacin, when you take flushing niacin, the idea that that's detoxing you, I don't know where anybody got that. I'm like, can you show me research? What is it detoxing? Because the research that I look at says that it's causing a massive histamine reaction. And that's why you get itchy and you turn red. That's not, are we causing an allergic reaction and calling that health? Like, are you serious? And then they get mad because, and then other people were talking to me about some of these niacin flush pushers, and they're like, oh yeah, they send people to the hospital all the time. What part of that? How can? But the Scientology guy says it's the detox. Just niacin and sauna. Okay, sweating can help you detox some stuff through your skin, sure. But niacin is not doing it. Causing a histamine reaction, thinking it's great. Anyway. Okay. So I don't see any more super chats, and I got to get going to my inner circle. For those of you who, let me just do this last update. So this, we had I'll just put it, we had a video, an unlisted video here from 2018. So this, a video of ours, unlisted, never made public on this channel from 2018, which if you know the dates, that was before the whole virus shenanigans happened, has now been taken down. Our third video, unlisted, has now been taken off the channel. I used to store them here. And there was never a problem until, I don't know, now we're almost 5 years later that they're causing problems. But just think that's so in the inner circle and in the advanced detox program, which are only accessible to Love Your Liver Network, the Nutrition Detective Network, Love Your Liver program people. So you got to be in the Love Your Liver program section of the network to see it, to have access to it. If you want to join the advanced detox, where you see the videos a month later from the inner circle and you don't get to ask questions, that's $10 a month. The inner circle itself is $50 a month for the people who want to ask unlimited questions and see it live, especially, and see it a month before everybody else. That's what the inner circle is. That's what I'm about to go do. But so my old inner circle videos, if you want to know what kind of juicy stuff is in those, 3 of them have now been taken down. I didn't get strikes, thank goodness. No strikes. But they were taken down for topics that I apparently should not be giving my opinions on. So anyway, that was the other fun update I had. So let me see. Let me just go and flip through here. I didn't see any new super chats, but we're going to wrap it up after this. For those of you who don't know, my website is nutritiondetective.com. If you want to join the Love Your Liver program, which is inside the Nutrition Detective Network, that's at members.nutritiondetective.com. All of the links are down below. We are now on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and we are now on Spotify Podcasts. Those links are down in the info below. So you can find us there if that's the way you'd rather listen. Thank you to everybody, Alexander and Ryan for the super chats, and Ramon as usual. Oh, here's one. And Mina. Mina did the eye damage. So Mina, just about the blurry vision, dry eyes, and light sensitivity, do they resolve with detox? Yes. Things with eyes, I tend to think of just making sure that you have all the things you need to, the basics, the most basics to help with vitamin A detox. Enough protein in your diet. At least minimum, absolute minimum 50 grams a day. Absolute minimum. People then go, wait, Dr. Smith says you only need 50 grams of protein a day. No, I'm saying that's the absolute minimum. We have people eating a pound of beef a day, 2 pounds of beef a day, 3 pounds of beef a day. I'm not saying there's an upper limit on the protein. I'm saying, especially for you ladies, you don't always eat very much protein. And the world, I know I don't look to the World Health Organization as like a beaming light of good health advice. I tend to think the opposite is true. But the World Health Organization has said that to prevent protein malnutrition in countries where they don't even get to eat meat, they say that you should get at least 50 grams of total protein a day, minimum. That is 7 ounces plus of either red meat or poultry. 7 ounces plus in a day. That's if you were just getting your protein from that. Now, they're talking about total protein. I'm talking about total protein. I tend to prefer meat sources. But some of you ladies, if you total up your protein, you're not even at 50 grams of protein a day. And then you wonder why you have no energy and you feel bad and you're not getting where you want. You need more protein. I'm not saying this about, I don't know this about you, Mina. I'm just saying this is a general thing. So you need protein. Why do you need protein? You need protein to make all these binding proteins, which we went over in the autoimmunity one. Binding proteins are what our body makes to protect us from toxins, like retinol binding protein, like cellular retinoic acid binding protein, like ceruloplasmin, which is made to protect you from copper. It's not to deliver copper, it's to protect you from copper. Like all the antibodies your body needs to make, which are toxin binders. You need enough protein. So that's number one. Number two, zinc. You need enough zinc. The best food source of zinc by far is meat, particularly red meats. Poultry is way less. Birds are way less in zinc. And then enough taurine. Taurine has been shown to bind to aldehydes like retinaldehyde in the eye. Gosh, what does that mean taurine might be? An antidote? So taurine also helps with eye issues. I've been over that in the vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist thread. Let me show you. Let me do this. Let me find that thread. Vitamin A deficiency can be shown to simply be meat deficiency. And I go over that deeply in thread. I don't remember if I have a video going over all that stuff, but if I do, it wasn't as detailed as that Twitter thread that I just put in the live replay, the chat. Sorry, the live chat. Just a quick question. TJ50 Mag says, so does that mean beer kegs or kegs have aluminum leaching too? I haven't seen that on hair tests. I'll put it this way. I haven't been able to connect those specifically. But if somebody's drinking enough stuff out of kegs, they probably got other problems like alcohol intake that they might want to focus on first. So I'll put it this way. For those of you who are still out there drinking beer or drinking White Claw or whatever, like I'll put it this way. I will never in my life ever drink a beer out of a can ever again. Because it's like the alcohol's bad enough, folks. I mean, beer itself is like the waste product of, it's like yeast poop. Like you're using yeast to process things to basically make waste products like alcohol that we're then consuming. You know, it's making ethanol, it's making acetaldehyde, it's making acetic acid, right? Because vinegar is just alcohol that's been allowed to sit a long time. There's nothing good for you about alcohol. But do we want to compound it by now taking an aluminum with our alcohol? Don't make it worse. Don't drink alcohol out of cans. If you're going to drink alcohol, like we're all human, I'm not saying you never have an alcoholic drink again. It's probably the best thing for you. But we're all human. Don't drink it out of cans. Just don't. If you're going to drink something alcoholic, drink it out of glass. Do yourself that favor. Okay? But I haven't connected stuff to kegs because honestly, I don't, that's not a question I ask in my consults. Like if I see high aluminum, I just tell people to watch my aluminum video, which is in the Love Your Liver program, and reduce their exposure to aluminum. Usually people on the Love Your Liver program are figuring out that they want to get their health back and that drinking alcohol is not going to facilitate that. And so they're generally drinking less and less. So that's that. Hope that helps. Remember, we're always in this toxic world we live in. We're trying to reduce. I mean, it would be great if you can eliminate stuff. If you can eliminate it and make it zero, that's great. But otherwise, we're trying to minimize and reduce our exposure. So thank you again for the super chats. Reconnect to Health. I think you had you had 2. Thank you for those. Ryan, you had a couple of them, and then Ramon, you had I think 3. Was it? Wow, thanks, Ramon. And then I think that's all the super chats. So yeah, we're gonna. Oh, Ramon had another one. Thank you for another awesome live stream. Yep, you're very welcome, Ramon. I hope you guys like the Q&A. I know I do want to get to some of the other questions, but like I said, for those of you who want all the questions answered you want, that's the inner circle. That's where you can post as many things as you want, and I take all the time I got to do it. So that's where I'm going to go now. Hope you all enjoyed this. I will be back next week, and I will answer more questions and go over more topics, and hope you all have a great weekend. Remember, don't go drinking beer out of cans, and eat less canned food. Doesn't mean none, just less. Okay? So hope you all have a great weekend. Bye now.